The Galactic Council chamber echoed with laughter. The KRYTH representative, a towering figure clad in ceremonial armor, leaned back with a sneer. Humans negotiate like frightened children. Always pleading, always compromising. Why should we grant them anything? Across the table, Ambassador Lillian Carter forced a calm smile. Because fair trade benefits all. We ask only for what's reasonable. The Zavari trade minister scoffed, his bioluminescent tendrils flickering in amusement. Reasonable? You pay the tariffs we set, you abide by our claims, and you stay in your designated sectors. If you find that unfair, perhaps you should have built an empire instead of an economy. Lillian exhaled. They knew exactly what they were doing, stalling, condescending, keeping humanity tied up in bureaucratic knots. For decades, Earth had tried to play by the rules, even as the rules changed to keep humans at a disadvantage. A projection flickered to life above the council table, displaying the latest territorial adjustments. The red marks, human settlements, had shrunk again. The Drevna Dominion had quietly annexed a resource-rich asteroid belt, citing security concerns. The KRYTH Imperium had absorbed 2 frontier outposts, declaring them culturally insignificant. And no one cared. She could feel their amusement, their certainty. No human fleet would come to challenge them. No warships would retaliate. Earth would file another protest. The cycle would repeat. A chime signaled the meeting's end. The KRYTH representative gave her a toothy grin. Always a pleasure, Ambassador. Do let us know if your species ever decides to grow a spine. The laughter followed her out of the chamber. Far from the capital, on the outer edges of human space, Vesper 9 glowed beneath twin moons. The colony was young, only 20 years old, but it had thrived. Farms, research stations, families. A peaceful world unguarded. And it was about to burn. The attack came without warning. One moment, the colony's long-range scanners showed nothing. The next, the sky was filled with descending warships. The Drevna led the assault, KRYTH shock troops deploying in coordinated waves. By the time distress calls reached Earth, the massacre had already begun. Civilians were lined up and executed. Crying children were torn from their parents. Scientists were dragged from their labs, beaten for amusement. The KRYTH commander recorded a message for the human government, displaying human bodies piled in the streets. Vesper 9 is no longer yours. Do not embarrass yourselves by contesting it. The Galactic Council remained silent. No condemnations. No sanctions. The broadcast reached every human colony. Every station, every home on Earth. The footage played in loops, corpses, fire, the laughing aliens. For the first time in human history, no one called for diplomacy. There was no debate. No hesitation. Only one decision. Humanity stopped being nice. The Galactic Council chambers were undisturbed by the massacre. The KRYTH Imperium moved to formalize their claim over Vesper 9, while the Drevna boasted of their swift victory. The Zavari prepared new trade routes to exploit the region's resources. It was business as usual. They expected humanity to protest. They expected another desperate plea for fairness. Instead, every human embassy in the galaxy closed its doors. Every diplomatic channel went silent. Human ships vanished from trade lanes. No protests. No negotiations. A deep, uneasy quiet settled over the council. Then, the first strike came. The Drevna shipyard at Zorath 5, a massive facility responsible for nearly half their fleet's production, was obliterated in a single night. No alarms, no warnings, just a sudden collapse into ruin, as if the station had never existed. Surveillance footage recovered later showed strange, darting shapes breaching the hull, moving with impossible precision. The KRYTH Imperium's central data network suffered catastrophic failure. Entire fleets lost communications. Weapons systems refused to respond. Their proud warships, once symbols of dominance, drifted powerless. The KRYTH High Command scrambled to recover, only to find that every backup had been corrupted. A simple message replaced their military archives. Asterisk. You wanted to see our strength. Now you will. Asterisk. The Zavari trade conglomerate's supply depots erupted in synchronized explosions, their most valuable cargo reduced to debris. Their stock markets collapsed overnight. When their leadership convened to discuss recovery, they found encrypted human messages waiting in their personal terminals. "We know where you sleep." Panic spread. This wasn't an act of desperation. It was calculated, coordinated. Humanity wasn't fighting a war. They were exterminating obstacles. Drevna warlords called for retaliation, but their fleets never made it past their own borders. Entire battalions disappeared without a trace. Officers defected or were found executed in their own chambers, throats slit with eerie precision. The KRYTH attempted an emergency counteroffensive, assembling their largest fleet near the core worlds. As their armada moved into formation, human warships, sleek, silent, unseen, emerged from the void and fired a single, devastating volley. It was not a battle. It was a message. The KRYTH fleet burned. Galactic leaders, once so certain of human weakness, now whispered in fear. They had mistaken kindness for cowardice. Now they understood the truth. Humanity had never been weak. They had only been patient. And their patience had run out. The Galactic Council collapsed into chaos. Every race that had once mocked humanity now scrambled for answers. Armies mobilized, defense grids were reinforced, and emergency alliances were formed. It made no difference. The humans had already decided the outcome. The KRYTH homeworld was the first to fall. Their fleets were crippled, their stations shattered. When human forces arrived, there was no grand siege, only silence before the storm. The invasion was precise, methodical. Entire cities went dark as power grids failed. Communication ceased. KRYTH soldiers waited in bunkers, weapons clutched tight, but the enemy never came the way they expected. They struck from within, appearing like ghosts, eliminating leadership, shutting down resistance before it could even form. When the KRYTH Emperor tried to flee, his escaped ship was torn from the sky by human fire. His burning body was broadcast to every KRYTH colony. The Drevna Dominion collapsed next. Their warlords, once so eager to flaunt their power, turned on each other in desperation. Some begged for human mercy. Others tried to rally their remaining forces. None succeeded. Their capital station, once a symbol of dominance, became a ruin within hours. Zavari merchants abandoned their own people, retreating to hidden worlds, hoping to escape notice. They didn't. Human operatives found them, one by one. Those who had once dictated unfair trade agreements now found themselves stripped of everything. Their wealth, their influence, their very lives, erased. No peace treaties were offered. No demands were made. Only consequences. World after world fell. The races who had once ruled the stars now begged for survival. Those who had never taken humanity seriously now sent desperate transmissions, pleading for negotiations, for mercy. None came. The galaxy finally understood. Humanity had always been capable of this. They had simply chosen not to. Until now. The war ended before the galaxy could grasp what had happened. The great empires that had once dictated galactic law were gone, their rulers dead, their fleets shattered. What remained were broken worlds and frightened survivors, staring into the void where their power had once stood. Humanity did not occupy. They did not claim new territories. They did not install puppet governments. They had no interest in ruling what they had destroyed. Instead, a single transmission was sent across the stars, reaching every species, every world, every leader still alive. Asterisk. This was never about conquest. It was never about revenge. It was about consequences. You mistook our patience for weakness. You thought our kindness was submission. You believed you could take from us without cost. Asterisk. Asterisk. You were wrong. Asterisk. Silence followed. No threats, no ultimatums. Just a message and the weight of what had been done. The surviving races, once so arrogant, now whispered among themselves. What would humanity do next? Would they wipe them out completely? Would they expand and dominate as others had before them? But humanity simply left. Their war fleets vanished into the black, returning to their own systems. Their operatives, their strike teams, their relentless machines of war, all of them disappeared as if they had never been there. The lesson remained. Galactic borders were redrawn, but this time with careful hands. The Council, now restructured under new leadership, established policies that ensured fairness, respect, and restraint, because the alternative had been burned into history. No species dared to challenge humanity again. They had learned what happened when humans stopped being nice.